Kidneyok, North Carolina, on December 1903, the Wright brothers made the first successful sustained flight. 6 years later, they demonstrated their improved craft to the Army at Fort Myers in Virginia. Among those in attendance was the 17-year-old Donald Douglas. After watching the Wright brothers' demonstration, Donald was accepted to the U.S. Naval Academy. Douglas's family, fellow midshipmen, and professors thought his interest in aviation would pass, but Douglas began building model airplanes and testing them secretly in the Academy Armory. It was one of these models that ended his career in the Navy. It was a beautiful job, and it sailed smoothly through the air after Douglas launched it from the roof of the dormitory. It made a beautiful three-point landing, too, but on the Admiral's head. Douglas resigned from Annapolis in 1912. He immediately entered the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to study aerodynamics, and in 1914 he graduated with a B.S. in engineering. At age 20, Douglas was the first and youngest aeronautical engineer in America. After graduation, Douglas worked as an assistant professor for MIT, as a consultant for Connecticut Aircraft Company, and helped build the first Navy dirigible. In August 1915, he joined the Martin Company in Los Angeles as a chief engineer. In 1916, he married his wife, Charlotte, and later on they moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, where the Martin Aircraft Company had relocated. As chief engineer, Douglas was in charge of building the U.S. Army twin-engine bomber. In 1920, Douglas left Martin and his $10,000 annual salary, and with only $600 to invest, returned to California to form his own aircraft company in Santa Monica. Through a friend, Bill Henry, he met David Davis, a wealthy playboy. Davis wanted to make a name for himself by becoming the first to fly non-stop across the United States. Douglas drew up the plans for a plane called the Cloudster and convinced Davis to put up $40,000 necessary to build it. In June 1921, the Cloudster set out for its transcontinental flight from March Field in California to Curtis Field in New York. But the engine had trouble and forced to make an emergency landing in Texas. After this aborted flight, Davis lost interest and left the company, taking the plane with him. While Davis prepared for his transcontinental flight, Douglas proposed a new type of single-engine torpedo seaplane for the U.S. Navy. Douglas received the first military order, a Navy contract, worth $119,000 for 3 experimental aircraft that would be based on the original Cloudster design. Unfortunately, Donald didn't have the collateral to complete this project. He once again turned to his friend, Bill Henry, who helped him make a meeting with the publisher of Los Angeles Times, Harry Chandler. Harry Chandler had helped development in Los Angeles area for several years, especially noted in the LA Coliseum, the LA San Pedro Harbor, and the Pacific Electric cars. In 1910, the Los Angeles Times publicized the very first air show in the United States at Dominguez Field in Carson, California. Since he was interested in avionics, Chandler sent a note around to 10 local businessmen, and through these men, he was able to establish a loan for $15,000. With this collateral, in July 1921, the Douglas Company opened its first plant in the old Santa Monica Motion Picture Studio on Wilshire Boulevard and 25th Street. In 1922, the Douglas Company was able to complete the project for the 3 experimental airplanes. In 1923, the Army was looking for a plane to fly around the world, and after talking the matter over with a number of other manufacturers, Douglas was the one to get the job done. In 1924, the U.S. Army aviators electrified the world as they piloted 4 Douglas World Cruisers in the first around-the-world flight, which took approximately 6 months to complete. As the company expanded, the plant moved from the Wilshire location to the local Clover Airfield. In 1932, Douglas started building transport airplanes. In 1936, Douglas produced the legendary DC-3, the most popular commercial airliner for the Transcontinental and Western Airlines, or TWA. The DC-3 offered roomy seating, men and women's lavatories, and sleeping accommodations for as many as 14 passengers. By 1939, more than 90% of the passengers were flying on the DC-3 or its predecessor, the DC-2. During World War II, the Douglas Aircraft Company plant continued to produce transport planes for the military. Because of its close proximity to the coastline, Douglas contracted with Warner Brothers Studios to camouflage the plant and the Clover Airfield. Because the camouflage was done so well, many pilots ended up landing in other airfields, complaining that the Clover Airfield had moved. During the war, the Santa Monica plant continued to produce military transport planes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This transformed the sleepy beachside community of Santa Monica into a blue-collar community. In order to help boost the morale of his employees, Douglas opened the Aero Theater, which showed the latest Abbott and Costello movies to its employees. After the war, the Douglas Aircraft Company continued to produce commercial airliners and expanded to the new field of aerospace. At the close of the 1950s, Douglas began development of the jet-powered airliner, the DC-8, to compete with Boeing 707. When the city of Santa Monica declined Douglas's request to lengthen the runway to accommodate the new aircraft, Douglas shifted the manufacturing of the aircraft to the Long Beach plant. However, research and development, missile production, and subassembly work continued at the Santa Monica plant. In the 1960s, the Clover Airfield became the Santa Monica Airport, and in 1967, the Douglas Aircraft Company merged with McDonnell Aircraft to become McDonnell Douglas Corporation. Part of the merge included the complete relocation to Long Beach in 1975, and by December 1977, the entire Santa Monica plant had been destroyed. Donald Douglas passed away in Palm Springs in 1981. There's one other agency that was created in Santa Monica due to the Douglas Aircraft Company and the United States Armed Forces. Project RAND was a think tank developed in 1946. In 1948, the RAND Corporation became a non-profit agency in Santa Monica. To this day, the parent company is still located in Santa Monica. There's very little physical evidence of the Douglas Aircraft Company in Santa Monica. The Aero Theater is still operating as an art house theater, and the original site for the Douglas plant on Wilshire is now known as the Douglas Park.